Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video. In this one we're going to be looking at my Game Week 23 team selection. Of course we'll include a little snapshot of how I got on in Game Week 22 first of all. We'll then talk transfer options, benching options, captaincy, vice captaincy, all that good stuff in today's video. So if you're new around here and you enjoy what you see, then please feel free to subscribe to the channel. And of course don't forget to boot that like button if we're enjoying the content, guys. But let's have a look first of all at how we got on in Game Week 22. 92 points all out in terms of a summary, and we've had another green arrow. We've not had a red arrow since the World Cup, which has been absolutely great. We're now at 117k. We started pre-World Cup at 1.5 million, so top 15%, and we're very, very close now to the top 1%. So almost at that 1% club. We didn't take any hits this week. We've got 3.5 million in the bank to play around with and a very, very high squad value now of 99.8 million. So yeah, very, very confident. Of course, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of players really that we'll know, I suppose. First of all, congratulations to all of the triple captainers on Rashford. You've certainly done an absolute number there, getting an additional 20 points. Far outweighed, of course, the 12 that I received in Game Week 21 and many others. And of course, I think it was the 8 points that Haaland got for Game Week 21 as well. So absolutely great decision. So congratulations to you. Of course, a normal captaincy did still bring in 20 extra points. So a total of 40, which is absolutely great. You know, pretty much almost half of my team's points overall. Of course, Bruno Fernandes coming in with the double digits there of 12, scoring that early penalty against Crystal Palace. Unfortunately, not registering anything against Leeds, but did come close on numerous occasions. And I'm confident that he can be a bit of a long-term, well, not necessarily long-term hold, but definitely a hold up until Game Week 25 based on his performances. Of course, Kepa as well, another double-digit man there with 10 points. Phenomenal performance from him again with the saves and just the clean sheet overall, the bonus points. He's just helped, I think, propel me with these green arrows as well because, of course, he has been in the squad every week since bringing him in. Harry Kane coming in with that goal against City. Of course, the conversation I had with many of you for Game Week 22 before we had news of Rodrigo's injury. Of course, I was looking at playing Botman ahead of Kane at one point and benching him, but I'm very glad I made the decision to not do that. But it actually turned out that Botman was needed anyway because of Rodrigo's injury. So the time I needed him, unfortunately, Newcastle didn't keep the clean sheet there, meaning that Trippier and him both scored 2 points. But I don't think that's something we're going to see very often this season. They've not conceded many goals at St James's Park, but they are blanking in 25. So Botman's definitely on the watch list this week to come out of the squad. In terms of bench, just briefly before we move on, no missed opportunities there. Of course, Rodrigo being injured, Bueno not featuring against Liverpool, Sam Greenwood with 2 appearance points from both the Forest and United game, and then Ward only picking up 2 against Aston Villa. So yeah, no missed opportunities, thankfully, there. Let's have a look at how the team, just a snapshot on how I would line up for Game Week 23 then if I made no moves. So this is the essentially what I'd be looking at. I'd keep Bueno on the bench, I think, even though Southampton is a favourable fixture. There's nobody really there that I think I would substitute out. I would definitely back the double Newcastle defenders against Bournemouth away. Of course, all of my defenders at this point would have an away fixture, but they are still very, very good fixtures. Of course, Palace, a little bit sort of lowish down the league, mid-table, but West Ham, Bournemouth and Leeds are all fighting for the relegation battle, right? So in terms of output, I think this would be a pretty formidable defence. My problem really lies in the attacking situation where I've only got 3 double game week players. I think most teams will more than likely have 5 to 6, and I would be sat on 3 if I didn't make any transfers at all, which I don't think it's horrible, but I also don't think it's capitalising on what's in front of us this week. So a couple of transfer routes that I've got, and we'll be talking about those next. But let me know in the comments below what your thoughts of this team are. Would you tinker with it any further? Would you just leave it as it is? Let me know what your thoughts are below. And then, of course, we look at the transfer route. So first of all, my planned transfer 1, which I think I'm about 30% confident in. The second one is definitely my preferred option, but we'll talk through route 1 first of all. And that is shifting my formation into a 3-4-3 and getting rid of Sam Greenwood, pretty much a non-playing player for Leeds United anyway, and bringing in Nketiah. Now, he's got 2 double game weeks in Game Week 23 and in Game Week 25. So an Arsenal asset for this week, I think, is an absolute priority for every team if you haven't already got a triple up, in my opinion. Nketiah, though, the unfortunate downside to him is post-game week 25, when I'd anticipate that Jesus starts making a return, his minutes may then end up being managed. It doesn't necessarily mean that Arteta won't feature him in certain games, especially with sort of cup fixtures and everything else going on. But I genuinely believe that he's a risk post-game week 25, which is why I'm only 30% confident that I'll do it. I think 3 Arsenal attackers would be optimal this week, definitely. But I think I'm going to be looking at an alternate route. Botman would then be the defensive option that gets substituted out here for Nathan Ake. My problem here again with this route 1 is that Nketiah becomes a minutes risk in the future, and Ake will always be a minutes risk, in my opinion, from the way that Pep is setting up recently. I don't think there's any nailed players in that City team now, apart from Ederson and Haaland. I would expect that KDB does get consistent minutes over these 3 game weeks, but generally speaking, I think that the defensive options are very limited on who we can go with. There's too many question marks for me, and as tempting as it is to target not only the double game week in 23 for a City asset, but also 24 and 25 with really good fixtures against Forest and Bournemouth, I think I'm going to be swaying away from that and doing the reverse, essentially putting a City attacker in and an Arsenal defender. I think that's the route I want to go. And that leads me into route number 2 then, where my first defensive change again would be Botman to Ben White. I do feel like there is, again, a little bit of risk with Ben White in comparison to someone like Saliba or Gabriel, but I really need to look at the money if I was going to be making that move later down the line. Now we know that there's a double game week in game week 25. I'm looking at a potential move from Bruno Fernandes up to Mohamed Salah. Now, if that is my preferred route to a Liverpool asset, I need to be careful on how much money of this 3.5 million currently that I'm spending in this week specifically. So Ben White fits the bill in terms of an Arsenal asset, but of course isn't as expensive as Gabriel and Saliba, meaning that I can still get to Mohamed Salah in game week 25 quite comfortably. So Ben White's the preferred option here at the moment. My concern is that if Arsenal absolutely hammer Brentford within the first half, let's say it was a 3-0 by 45 minutes, my concern for Ben White then is, does he last until 60 minutes? I've got a feeling we don't see that. I've got a feeling that Tomiyasu may get played for that final 30 minutes, 35 minutes even, and Ben White gets subbed pre-60, which is exactly what I don't want. But again, talking about the value, I think it makes more sense to have somebody that I think is nailed on, especially for that City game, as opposed to taking the risk with Nathan Ake and still getting a double game weeker in 23 and 25. We then look at Rodrigo out, as we know he's not back until at least April, I believe. So he's out for a couple of months. Doesn't make sense to hold on to him long term. And to be honest, I was looking at holding him up until game week 25. And then Brighton do actually have a chance of doubling in game week 26. So he was always going to be Matoma for me, or March, depending on the form that they've showcased. And at the moment, it does look like Matoma. So instead of that, I'm thinking, let's keep the 3-5-2 formation. We've got Jack Grealish coming in instead of Mahrez. And really, there's only one reason for that, and that is because the European fixtures. The Premier League fixtures, yes, they look fantastic, but I think Grealish will feature more in the Premier League than he does in Europe. I think if Phil Foden returns, Phil Foden will feature in Europe alongside Mahrez, and we will see Jack Grealish being played maybe with Alvarez, for example. And essentially, I don't see him being as much of a risk as Mahrez. And it gives me that double game week in 23 and then obviously really good fixtures in 24 and 25. So that's the logic in terms of Grealish over Mahrez. But then, of course, as mentioned, Grealish would probably become, in game week 26, a Matoma if Brighton double, and maybe not if they don't as well. They've got good fixtures, Brighton. I think it's West Ham they play in game week 26, so it makes sense to possibly free up some money for future moves as well. But I don't think I will hold on to any City assets beyond Haaland long term, if I'm honest. So that's the route 2 that I'm planning. I'm about 70% certain that this is the route I'm going to go down, and that's why we're going to showcase how the team would line up based on these 2 moves happening. So in defence then we would have Kepa, Shaw, Trippier and Ben White. Of course, 3 of these fixtures are away fixtures for Kepa, Trippier and Shaw. but they're all against bottom teams, essentially. Yes, we've just seen Leeds score 2 goals against United at home, and that will give them a lot of confidence going into that Elland Road fixture at the weekend. But I still think Luke Shaw's upside above clean sheets as well in terms of assist potential and overall attacking threat makes sense to play him ahead of who you'll see on my bench shortly. Trippier against Bournemouth, really good fixture. Bonus point machine, doesn't go anywhere in this case. Ben White, of course, coming in with that double, and Kepa against West Ham. So very confident with this back line if that's how I shape up with the Ben White transfer. We then go into the midfield here with Jack Grealish, Saka, Rashford, Fernandes and Odegaard. I honestly don't think a midfield can get any stronger than that, to be honest. Yes, Grealish is maybe a bit of a punt, but his numbers have looked really, really positive so far. Fernandes was the original plan to come out back for KDB, but I genuinely think that now Fernandes is on so many more set pieces and of course scored that penalty against Crystal Palace. We know he's on penalties now. It kind of makes sense for me to hold on to him until game week 25, and then I'll move him more than likely on to Mo Salah. So that's the plan currently. Then we've got Saka doubling, Odegaard doubling, and of course Rashford against Leeds, who also is going nowhere. Finally, then we look at my front two here in Harry Kane and Erling Haaland. Kane, of course, again, somebody that I think a lot of people are trying to get to. He just shows such a level of composure and consistency as this Premier League striker, you know, absolutely breaking goal records and essentially, you know, pushing Spurs on to try and get some kind of silverware to his name as well. And I think that against Leicester, they're a team that, of course, have declined in recent months. Yes, they have James Maddison back from injury, which is a massive plus for them from an offensive point of view. But I think defensively, they still have some work to do. So I think Harry Kane against them is an absolutely great fixture. And I would absolutely recommend looking at trying to find routes to getting Harry Kane into your team if you haven't already. And finally, Erling Haaland, again, as that City frontliner, double game week. Aston Villa and Arsenal away. I think, yes, the Arsenal fixture's tricky, but that Villa fixture definitely looks like something he can take advantage of. That brings us then into the captaincy and vice-captaincy. And of course, the captaincy armband goes back to that man, Erling Haaland. I think there is argument that you could potentially put it on one of the Arsenal assets. Maybe Saka could get the captaincy, but I just think that Erling Haaland, yes, okay, we didn't see the best of him against Spurs at all. That definitely wasn't the best game, but I genuinely think that KDB is more than likely going to be coming back in. He is that creative midfielder that Man City really need to find those penetrating Haaland runs. And I think Grealish also benefits from the way Haaland plays sometimes, and he's also somebody I think can provide attacking returns for him. So the armband is firmly on him. Vice captaincy moves to Saka, just in case. We know that chip, that part of the game can sometimes come into play. So putting that on Saka. In terms of benching, no real headaches here. We've got Estepinian unfortunately dropping to the bench with that Crystal Palace fixture, but I just can't see a way to bring him in this week against Palace when you've got fixtures like that in front of you with all the rest of the players. But let me know your thoughts again below, guys, how you think this team should line up with that bench into consideration. But very, very confident overall, guys. Very happy going into game week 23. If I was to line up this way, it would give me 5 double game weekers, and of course I'd have to triple up on Arsenal then, ready for game week 25. And then before we sign off for this video, guys, there's just a couple of points that I want to be talking about. It's not something I've done before, but I just want to talk briefly about the FPL Link Mini League. There is a link in the description below to join it. It is just a bit of fun, but I'm probably going to be giving the winner something. To be honest, of course, this channel isn't monetized. There's nothing that I get essentially for doing it, but just to give back to the community on what I would consider a pretty successful first season so far, there probably will be some kind of prize, football related, of course, but I'll give out those details closer to the end of the season. But as you can see here, of course, Moses, I think he's been in the top spot for a long time now with 1,413 points. So very, very well done to you, sir. We have George McGavin there with 1,409. We've got FPL Boo Boo, mate. Fantastic. You're there with 1,404. You're always a regular viewer of the live stream. So congrats to you being in the top 3. And of course, yeah, we have a real competition on, to be honest, in terms of those top spots. I've closed the gap between myself and Arman. I think he was 7 points ahead of me, but now only 4 points. So closing that gap slowly for you, sir. But yeah, it's a bit of fun, of course, guys. There's no, of course, there'll be bragging rights, and you'll be featured in my video descriptions forever. Essentially, at the moment, I've just got a TBC against the FPL Link winners trophy for now. But yeah, shout out to everybody that's joined, and good luck for the rest of the season to you. And finally, just another point here that I wanted to pick up on. It's not something I've done as well or checked before, but it's the Content Creators League, if there should be one. So there's a website called FPL Gameweek, and essentially it just looks at all of the FPL content creators that are across Twitter and YouTube and so on, and it obviously places you in that league. Now, I'm very, very surprised, to be honest, to be as high up as 17th. I'm very happy to be in and amongst some absolutely fantastic names. I mean, obviously FPL Harry there with Ben Krellin all the way at the top, with about a sort of 60, 70 point lead, right, in terms of my points. But yeah, there's some very formidable names here. So finishing, or at the moment, currently 17th across that league is something I'm very, very proud of this season. So yeah, something I'm going to keep an eye on. Maybe I won't feature it in every team selection, but yeah, happy to be in and amongst, like I say, some very, very formidable and veteran names of the FPL community. But that's going to sign me off, guys, for today's video. So thanks very much for watching. Appreciate the support that I always get on this channel. Of course, if you're new to the channel and you like what you saw, then absolutely feel free to subscribe to me. I'll be by your side for the rest of the season, hoping to help you with those green arrows to the end of the season. And of course, if you did like the content, guys, smash that like button below. But I'll see you in the live stream this weekend, guys, so feel free to tune into that also. And if not, I will see you in another video soon. Take care, guys.